You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this show. So today we've got, well, I mean, I was going to say it's a rare treat, but it's actually been out for a little while.
Right.
And that is the Mandalorian and Grogu trailer. They're starting to actually give us a little bit more information, and now they're starting to release stuff, finally. When is it coming out? It's coming out May of next year, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So, I think the trailer that we're gonna watch today, I think it might be the second one. I'm not entirely sure, because I remember when they first released like a teaser trailer or something, and that could be, I sort of lost track. They had a few different things. Of course, there was the one that they actually showed at Celebration. And then, you know, they've done a few things since then. And, of course, we've gotten a lot more information. We've got some more of the cast. We've got a bunch of things. I mean, today we're mainly going to just react and then discuss the trailer itself, but it's probably going to get time pretty soon to actually do a full-blown update on this.
Yeah.
So Ted Adam Green is with us, of course, as always, and he's got a lot to say. So let me. He's not actually there though. He's like, I most definitely will not make it tonight, guys. I have to get up at 4:30 a.m. tomorrow. Yeah, I sympathize. I actually have to get up not too much later than that, actually. But he looks forward to what we have to say, and his expectations for this movie is mixed based on the trailer. That's going to be interesting. He goes on to say, I don't think this will add much, if any, to the grand lore or move the needle very far on the overall Mandoverse storyline, but I do expect to have a fun time in the theater, and I'm okay with that. And then, of course, he wraps it up by saying, after all, Raiders of the Lost Ark was just that. Fun adventure in the theater like an old serial shown all at once. May the Force be with you all. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot even in just what Ted said.
Yeah.
I think
that's our show. No,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think Ted said it best. Yeah. Hopefully you guys could join us later. Well, I mean, I think one of the things is that a fun experience in the theater is probably what we need. I don't necessarily think that this has to move the needle on the lore too much. As long as it's a good story, as long as it's well executed, well acted, and pretty much, you know, like, is a good time in the theater. I don't necessarily think that we really need anything too heavy on this one, because what we need to do is just reestablish Star Wars as a fun Saturday afternoon serial type of a franchise, basically like how it started out. I mean, before we actually roll this trailer, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I don't think we need the Mandalorian and Grogu. I don't think it's intended necessarily to push the lore so much forward in the sense of the whole Jedi, story. I mean, you could, or it could be lightly. It may be there to like kind of throw the alley-oop. Here's my sports metaphor, reference for today. But
so early in the show, too.
I know. Well, you got to, get on the run. So I think this is more of like an alley-oop type thing where you run the floor. You had a couple of good seasons. You throw the ball up. You let, Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, whoever go up there and go climb and get the ball and dunk it and make a big, cheer for the fans. And I think that's kind of what this is going to be. I think this is going to be fun. I think it's definitely some cuteness we saw already in the trailer, but we'll get to that. And I think that was in the first trailer, the one from Celebration. They kind of showed some stuff with Grogu or whatnot. So, and the character of Grogu in and of itself is a cute character anyway. So I think that's kind of his brand anyway. So I don't think they'll go deviate, from that. So yeah, I think this is going to be a fun thing. Hope it's action packed, but I hope, like you said, I hope it's a really good story. And I just really hope that they continue the story that they've set up in the Mandoverse as far as, what happened with Moff Gideon. It's like, I hope we don't lose that. Like, this is like a side quest on something else. Especially if we're not going to get more seasons of the Mandalorian. If you're going to give us more seasons of the Mandalorian, then I'm okay with it.
Right.
But if you're not, you have to, you got to wrap all that stuff up in this.
Yes,
so that's
and
my thing.
That was exactly what I was going to get to, actually, is the fact that it's long been thought, and I think it's almost been confirmed, that this is essentially what Season 4 of The Mandalorian would have been.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, is it the end, though? And that's the ultimate question. Like, we still don't know if this is the complete end of the series and there's no more Mando and Grogu after this, or is this just kind of like, all right, we're going to drop a film and then we're going to continue?
Yeah,
that's the question,
right? And that is a good question. Well, all right. I guess with that, we should probably go ahead and show this thing and and see what we got, and then we'll react to it obviously a little bit, and then we'll discuss it and break it down.
The whole Jack. Reminded me of the whole Pirates of the Caribbean when they had like the warring of the telescopes.
Yeah, well, hang on. All right, here's a trailer from the beginning. It just somehow got in there. Good, it looks like a planet other than Tatooine. Well, there's water in this one.
And Babu Frick?
Yeah, it almost did look kind of like him, didn't it? Sigourney Weaver, I'm really curious about her character.
Mm-hmm. See, that's what I'm saying. The cuteness.
Right, the cuteness. You gotta have the cuteness.
Dang.
I'm glad it looks like they're having Grogu do more.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Like a bodybuilding hut.
Oh, Scorcher Hut. Is that a Rancor?
I think so. It's always nice to get an ad in
yes.
there.
Yes.
And I like the fact that it's an ice planet that doesn't look like Hoth.
Like, right. Forward try, Max.
Forward try, Max.
Good shot, baby.
Now,
All
my
right,
thing
so
is,
I mean that was actually along the expectations that I had. I mean, here's a criticism, and see what you picked up on as far as this goes.
mm-hmm.
The criticism is a lot of people think that this looks kind of like just an expanded episode of the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
Oh, look, it's David. He says, "Hello, gentlemen. It's Star Wars Day."
Yes, it is.
Yeah, he's there at the beginning. It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that in some ways it could look like an expanded episode, but again, I mean, I think you just have to go back to the fact that the Mandalorian as a series really felt somewhat cinematic. I mean, I honestly think of all the TV shows that we've seen on Disney Plus, I mean, the Star Wars ones, even though the volume is heavily used in The Mandalorian, I think it feels less closed. As far as all the ones, like I said, that are shot on the volume. I think that you don't, like with Obi-Wan, you're kind of like, yeah, they need to get away from the volume. I mean, there's like a lot of other ones, even, which I think is what makes Andor so refreshing, is the fact that Andor obviously made great use of its budget. You have practical locations. It feels bigger as far as the universe goes. And I can honestly say that even though, sure, you can make the argument that this feels like an expanded episode of the series already felt kind of like a cinematic Star Wars experience anyway. And this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. I'm not necessarily sure that it really needs to be more than.
Yeah, I mean, it does look like a just another episode from the week to week of the series or whatnot, and you don't you see the AT-ATs, so you kind of have to wonder who's the big bad in this. I mean, in my opinion, it has to be Gideon. It makes sense that he will still have like remnants of the old Imperial vehicles and armory and whatnot. So I'm surmising that he's probably going to be the villain in this, which I'm anxious to see. But yeah, I mean, there are some things that about it that I'm like, all right, it definitely feels familiar. But I like the fact that we see like Sigourney Weaver, so we're seeing some of and she's part of the Rebel Alliance. I mean, not the Rebel Alliance, the New Republic.
Yeah. I think she would be more part of the Republic because I don't think the Resistance is a thing yet. So it's definitely a New Republic thing. And to that end, we're also going to see a little bit more of a New Republic presence. We're going to see some of the familiar Ghost characters. I know they didn't really show that much in this trailer, but I think they did have a shot of like Zeb or something in something else that I saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've seen them pop up in The Mandalorian too. So
right, yeah. I mean that's a good point. That's been established. But beyond that, I think again, this trailer is really encouraging in the fact that it's showing that it's moving in the right direction. They're having Grogu do a little bit more. He's starting to at least communicate with sounds. I mean, he's not. I think it would be a little bit presumptuous to all of a sudden have him start, speaking basic. I think that would be a little bit too much. But the fact that he's starting to verbalize a little bit more, the fact that he's starting to get a little bit more into the action, he seems to be a key part. And to be fair, they did start that in Mandalorian Season 3, where they made him a little bit more active as far as a character. He wasn't just passively sitting there and being protected. He was part of the fight, if you will. And so I think to see more of that is encouraging. They've kept a lot of the same comedy, when he goes to take something on Sigourney Weaver's plate or whatever, and he's about to pull it with the Force and she stops him or something. Again, it speaks to the cute factor that you were talking about at the beginning. So, I mean, I honestly think that, beyond a lot of what we've seen and what is obvious, I think that there's going to be a lot of nuances. Now, what makes you think, other than the fact that, I guess it makes the most sense, but what makes you think that Gideon is going to be the main villain?
Well, outside of the aforementioned, seeing the AT-ATs, I think that it's native to the show. It's like that's the villain that we've already come to know anyway. And I think if you were to bring someone, if you brought someone new in, that's fine. But I think he has to be coupled with Gideon, like maybe Gideon sent for this person, or like Gideon has to be attached to this in some way, shape, or form, in my opinion. Again, like I said, if you're going to further the story of Mandalorian, because that's where we last left. Like, okay, he got defeated and he was pretty much put into custody. So now what?
Right.
Know? So it's like we got to figure out what happens to him.
Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out the timeline. Because, so Mandalorian, the series takes place between 9 and 11 years after the Battle of Yavin. And The Mandalorian and Grogu continues the story after Season 3's conclusion. So, yeah, I guess it's around... maybe the 9-year mark. I mean, it's really possibly 10. It's really tough to say where this fits in. The reason why I bring this up is because, Yeah, Moff Gideon just sort of, I mean, he wasn't killed, obviously. You know, he got away, but it's like, it was very reminiscent to me of when Vader was blasted off into space in A New Hope. You know, where we knew he was going to return, we just didn't know when. Now, of course, what ended up happening is he came back in the next movie, you know, badder than ever. But but the thing is that a lot of people I know were theorizing that Thrawn could be the big bad guy, but I think that's going to be saved for Ahsoka. Because that storyline really started to grow in Ahsoka. I mean, sure, it had a little bit of its embryonic stages in The Mandalorian Season 2, but it really started to grow with Ahsoka. And, of course, we have the whole story arc of Thrawn is coming into pretty much, you know, like Coruscant. But so I think that's going to happen there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because, you know, as you were, you know, talking, I looked up some of the cast for it, and specifically Mr. Esposito, and
is he in there?
It seems he's not.
That would be
They
the
say
giveaway.
he wasn't called. They say he wasn't called to. It says Ian Carlo wants to return as Moff Gideon in the Mandalorian Grogu film. They haven't called me. So I don't know.
Yeah, now it makes you wonder then, because it's true that Moff Gideon would be he would be the obvious choice. Actually, do a search and see if you can find out who the villain is. Like, I mean, I'm sure they didn't reveal it, but I mean, somebody. And hey, if anybody's in the chat and wants to chime in on who you might think it is, that's what this show is for, basically.
Yeah.
Same thing with the comment section if you're watching after the fact. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious because to me, it's that conflict that really drives the quality of the film, right? Like, who is the villain? You have to have a compelling villain, and we don't see much of that. I mean, one of the things that's actually missing from this trailer is the fact that we don't see, or at least we don't think we see, any main villain that's been revealed. Now, I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm sure it's intentional, but again, sometimes, you know, they'll actually hide things in plain sight. Star Wars is notorious for that. But I'm just curious on, you know, who everybody thinks the main villain could be, because really you only have, I mean, unless you introduce somebody completely new, you really only have a handful of choices.
Well, here's a possible. I even have one better for you, Eric.
Uh-oh.
So I have possible villain and plot.
All right.
So.
Well, take a drink of this non-sponsored Spindrift.
That was a cut water.
and let you pontificate, you know, as to.
Ooh, pontificate.
I know.
I like it.
Well,
So, while no official villain has been confirmed for the upcoming Mandalorian Grogu movie, rumors strongly suggest that the bounty hunter Embo will be the main antagonist. Embo, a Kyuzu, a male bounty hunter from Star Wars: The Clone Wars, will be hired to hunt down and kill Rotata the Hutt, with Din Djarin and Grogu potentially serving as protectors.
Oh, right, the Hutt. I forgot. That is basically the one. I remember watching something on it earlier, because that's the whole thing that, you know, you're finally seeing like this really hulked out, muscular Hutt. But what I'm trying to remember is if we've seen him before, though.
Who?
Rotata the Hutt.
Oh, Rotata. Maybe when they had remember that in that one episode of Clone Wars when they had all that. Was it the Clone Wars? Yeah, I think it was. Is it Clone Wars or Rebels? But I want to say it was Clone Wars. I'm pretty sure. I'm like 90% sure it was Clone Wars, where they had that one thing on Tatooine when. I think this is when Quinlan Voss was involved, because that was the same thing when he was trying to track the Hutt that ran off. But they had that whole council meeting of all the Hutts, remember? Some of them were in person, but a lot of them were.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. You mean like holograms?
Holograms, yes. I want to say telegraphs, and I was like, that's not the word.
Remember, we're a Star Wars show.
I know,
We've been
right?
into this for years, right?
I know.
We forget main characters' names. We forget the holograms. You know, it's that thing, the death something.
Yeah, the death ball.
Right. What's it called again? It's not a
Yeah,
moon, space station, something like that. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so, and for those of you who don't know, Embo, the bounty hunter, is the one with the, if you're familiar with the video game series Mortal Kombat, he's the one with the Kung Lao looking kind of hat that he would take off his and throw it at people, and
Yeah, he
almost
was
like
actually
Oddjob
somebody.
from
Yep.
like James Bond. And
In fact, was it Embo and Forlam? They did like a comic series or something of them. I mean, it was actually a pretty interesting thing. He's one of those guys that flies under the radar, but he's actually a really cool character, though. And again, I mean, I'm all for bringing people. See, the thing is, a lot of times they'll bring in, you know, there's a lot of talk of, oh, you know, bring in some expanded universe guys or bring in, you know, whatever. And the thing is, what I find to be completely hilarious is the fact that you'll get these guys that were actually created by Lucas. Like they're in the original trilogy or, you know, maybe one of the extensions, the Clone Wars or something like that. Something that Lucas directly did, and yet they don't really feature them. And I mean, I just think that that's in some ways kind of criminal because there are so many different characters that Lucas did have a lot to do with that are, I mean, they're classic characters by definition, but nobody would say that simply because they're not as known as some of the other ones. But I would love to see an Embo appearance or any of that. I mean, actually, any of those. You have IG-88, you have Dengar, you have all these other guys. Primarily, the only time you ever saw them really in live action was during that scene in The Empire Strikes Back when Vader's talking to all the bounty hunters. Bosk, another one.
mm-hmm.
I would love to see him factor in. And you could do that. We had thought, because The Mandalorian was sold to us as kind of like a Western, you know, like a Star Wars Western kind of thing. I'd always thought, how great would it be if they actually made it sort of a bounty hunter, you know, criminal underworld type of a thing. And you could easily go in that direction, especially if you're just doing individual films in the Mandoverse.
Yeah. Now, here's another plot that's also highly been put out there that could be very possible. And it would make sense because considering this is leading up more or less to the event of the creation of the First Order. So the evil empire has fallen, but imperial warlords remain scattered throughout the galaxy as a fledgling New Republic works to protect everything the rebellion fought for. They enlist the help of legendary Mandalorian bounty hunter Din Djarin and his young apprentice Grogu to basically kind of like wipe out like the last of the remnants of the empire. So they can kind of like, all right, we want to start fresh without these people. And then apparently, possibly Thrawn might be in this.
Well, that was my whole thing, right? Is like because it seems weird that they would do that before Ahsoka Season 2 comes out. Because when we last leave Ahsoka Season 1, Thrawn's on his way back. Now, depending on when they want to pick up Season 2, you know, maybe he's been back for, you know, I don't know, 2 years or something. And then The Mandalorian and Grogu takes place in between that. That's another thing that we should figure out is where does it... And I know they've announced this stuff off and on, but I never really put a whole lot of stock into it because, you know, even official sources can change depending on, you know, production schedules and what goes on and, you know, plot changes and whatever. So it's like, what... Did they actually tell us where like around Ahsoka season 2. We know that it takes place after Mandalorian season 3. But where does it fall in relation to Ahsoka season 2? I think that that's the important thing. Because if we can establish that, then...
So, it says the Mandalorian Grogu was set after the events of the Mandalorian TV series, which takes place after 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Which would be, and then it also says 12 or 13 years after the Battle of Yavin. Then it would be about 22 years before the events of the sequel trilogy.
Right, but now we have to figure out where Ahsoka season 2 takes place and then compare them.
So,
not to put all this on you, but...
Oh, it's fine. It's fine, actually.
As I just sit here and wait and jabber to the audience for a while. And drink. Non-alcoholic, of course. But...
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine the level of incoherence, though. But, I mean, I think that, honestly, if we were to figure out where that takes place, then we can better understand where Thrawn fits in. Because, again, Thrawn, in between... I mean, I think he's going to be in the core universe, the core worlds, when Ahsoka Season 2 starts. So I think in between Season 1 and Season 2, he arrives. Now, how close that arrival is to the first episode of Ahsoka Season 2, I don't think we know yet. And again, I know sometimes people chat in or comment or whatever and say, hey, this article said this, that said that. And that's true. And we can take all that into consideration. But I just had to remind everybody. I'd be remiss if I didn't remind people that, look, even the official sources a lot of times change their minds about things. It just depends on where they're going to go with the story. And so I think it's really important to establish this because, again, these plots that we've been, I guess, what would be the word now? Just kind of lost it a little bit. It's like some of these plots that have been revealed, in other words, we don't really know how even feasible they are. I don't think they're official, obviously. I think people are just putting theories out there. But when you compare it to this trailer, yeah, you definitely see AT-ATs. That tells me that whole Imperial Remnant theory might actually be on track. And honestly, I've always thought that would be one of the coolest things. I'm just going to riff on this for a second because I honestly think that's what they should do. Because one of the things that I always found interesting, and again, this played in with the expanded universe with the Rise of Thrawn, is to actually do something to where you have the Imperial remnants, there's a bunch of warlords that rise up and, start fighting for control. That's the scene that we see at the beginning of Heir to the Empire. It's Thrawn that actually starts to unite the factions. First, he fights them, and then he basically dominates and becomes the new, to use a sequel trilogy vernacular, the new supreme leader. Of course, he's the Grand Admiral, right? So, and of course, he has Pelion by his side, and that's how that goes. So, I think that to me always seemed interesting, where you don't have a defined leader yet, and that could be where this is, because if this takes place before Ahsoka Season 2, you can then say, okay, the Imperial remnants are fighting for control, the criminal underworld, like the Hutts, people like that, if they want to bring the Pikes into it, or, any of these organizations, you could start to do that, and then you set the stage for Thrawn to come in. So after the Mandalorian and Grogu, now we see that picking up in Ahsoka Season 2. So that would make sense to me.
So here's what I've gathered so far, and this is kind of coming from Filoni and Favreau a little bit. It says, while The Mandalorian and Ahsoka on parallel tracks that will lead to a unified cinematic experience. The Mandalorian and Grogu will pick up after season 3 and will be Star Wars' first film to be released in 7 years. Din Djarin and Grogu will be at the center of the much larger galactic conflict that has been hinted at over seasons, meaning the stakes will be high for both narratively and emotionally. Though Lucasfilm has not revealed much else about the plot, it's likely that the movie will address the growing threat of Thrawn, who looms large after his return in Ahsoka. Filoni's update also confirms that Ahsoka Season 2 is not just a continuation of his title or character's story, but it serves as a narrative anchor for the larger story he's been crafting by collaborating with Favreau and waiting to lock in the direction of his film until it is understood where Ahsoka is going. Filoni underscores how every arc is being thoughtfully built towards one cinematic payoff. With Filoni and Favreau closely aligning their visions, the groundwork laid across Disney Plus shows is shaping up to be a truly epic big screen adventure that brings the Mandoverse to a powerful climax.
All right. Well, David weighs in.
Okay.
I'm amazed. He says, "This looks amazing. I really don't think they're going to mess this up."
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you have to drink today?
I know. I mean, that's truly amazing. I mean, to me,
Right.
that's amazing. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't believe, now I hope that's the case, really, because
Right. We can't let David down, because now
Yeah.
that would be so unfortunate. Like, I really want them to win just specifically for David.
I know. I mean, I think it's very important that happens, but it just goes to show you, though, that it does look like this could be a project that very much fits within the framework of what Star Wars was created to be in the first place. A fun Saturday matinee Flash Gordon style serial.
Yeah, I think I think Mandalorian and Grogu is pretty much the setup possibly for season 2.
So you basically think it's Mandalorian and Grogu, and then that sets up Ahsoka Season 2.
Yeah, because I think it kind of from what it says, it's like they run parallel tracks. So I'm guessing that because of season 1 was Thrawn in the unknown regions, and he was trying to get out and get back to the known regions. So I think that's kind of where Mandalorian and Grogu is taking place. It's like there's this threat that Thrawn is coming to the known regions.
Okay, so it's kind of like the flip side now. Now we're
Yeah,
seeing the other side.
The other side of it,
of what was going on in
So
season
Ahsoka
1.
1 was like their viewpoint, and then like
Right.
the Mando is like on the other side of that coin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so then now, you have Thrawn entering the known. He's now entered the known galaxy with Ezra, and now you have that whole thing picking up. And then I think after the movie, now you get Ahsoka season 2, where now you go back to see, well, okay, well, how is Ahsoka and Sabine and all them going to get out of the unknown regions to join in on the fight?
Well, here's an interesting thought.
Which makes sense why you have Sigourney Weaver as
Right.
the
The New Republic, and they start to bring the New Republic into this a little more. And I think that that's something that, yes, we're going to definitely see more of in this film. But the interesting thing to me is that maybe that's why there is no central villain. Maybe what we are seeing is the various factions of the Imperial remnants. And then when Thrawn does finally come back, that's when that's all going to be united.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, that's what Gideon was. He was basically the leader of one of the factions.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a bunch of guys like that. Where they basically now... I always forget Werner Herzog's character from season 1. Because we thought he was the main villain until Gideon was revealed. But I always forget his character's name. Which is hilarious because he was like he was like the main guy in the first season. But And I know you're probably typing it up now and trying to figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. But the point is, he was set up to be this big villain. We thought he was the guy that wanted the baby or the
Yeah, he
asset.
was known as the client. That's why we have it, because he didn't have a name. He was just known as the client.
Really? I guess that's why. So for once, it wasn't me being forgetful. He actually didn't really have a character name. I thought he did, though. I thought they gave him one eventually. Oh, now I gotta go to IMDb. Nothing like producing on the fly, everybody.
Hey, man.
Well, I mean, if anybody
this is what it means to be a fan, you know.
Well,
you have
yeah,
to...
and not only that, but this is also like this just shows this literally is a discussion-based show, right?
Yeah.
So let's see, Mandalorian.
Yeah, they just called him the client.
They just called him the client.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Even
good.
on Wikipedia, it's like the client.
Oh well. All right. Well, but the thing is, he was the one that everybody thought was the big bad guy, and then it turned out that Gideon was pulling his strings, and then we find out Thrawn was pulling Gideon's strings, because remember there were those hologram communications back and forth.
Oh yeah, he did talk to Thrawn. Didn't he?
Did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was that connection. Yeah. Because that was a big thing, is that everybody thought, oh, Gideon is the main mastermind. Then all the time,
right? Because okay, yeah, it makes sense. It started to, kind of make sense now because, yeah, like you said, the client. Because even when Grogu, he was just known as the child. Remember,
right?
That was the name of the episode. Yep. It was like the client, and then the child, and then later on we found out his name was Grogu. But yeah, because when what's her name? Because was it?
Forgetting like everybody's names.
Well, because they keep popping up every. You know who was? You know what was actually really tough to keep track of? Speaking of that, it was Andor. Oh man, yeah.
Man, they were introducing characters like I still don't know half of the names of that. And I mean, I love that show so much, and I don't know half of the characters' names. I'm surprised that wasn't a problem when we were reviewing it, to be honest. Because we're notorious for forgetting names.
That's her name, Morgan Elsbeth. So
yes, okay, yeah. Well,
so yeah, Morgan.
She was the one that was the subject of Tales of the Empire.
Yeah. So. But Ahsoka fought her, and that's when she's a weird Thrawn. So that makes sense now. It all starting to make sense that because we kept thinking like, okay, well, when is Thrawn coming into the Mandoverse? But it's like, no, he came in Ahsoka. And we were like, okay, but now it makes sense now because now you have Ahsoka looking for Thrawn to find Ezra. They find Ezra and Thrawn. Thrawn is trying to get out of that unknown regions and back into the known galaxy. And then now Mando and Grogu are kind of like, oh, you got to deal with this blue guy. All right. And it makes sense now because the New Republic is like, all right, they know who Thrawn is. And they're like, look, we got to try to shut this stuff. We got to shut down his pipeline that's feeding him, stuff. So we can shut that down. It slows down Thrawn because he doesn't have that much to work with if we take these people. So that they hire Mando and Grogu to kind of start taking care of some of that stuff. So that way Thrawn doesn't have the army or the support that he needs to kind of try to take over.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's basically what it
makes sense.
Pretty much boils down to. Now, that's why I think that there's not necessarily going to be a central villain in the Mandalorian and Grogu. I think you're just going to see a lot of these different factions, and it's going to be basically a continuation of the series. Because if you remember, most of the Mandalorian was him just going on these various quests. Mm-hmm. He would take on a job or something, and then he would run into some almost villain of the week. I mean, I hate to put it like that, but because it is a little bit more than that. But I mean, if you really want to boil down to it, essentially, I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, there's no centralized. Sure, there was Gideon, there was Thrawn, that was running through the whole thread of the Mandalorian even. But when it came down to the actual episodes themselves, it was pretty much whoever was the villain of that particular story. It was basically based on each episode. It was very episodic that way. And I think you're going to get that here too.
But I think it makes sense as to why Gideon kept wanting the child, because he's like, he wants to be able to lead, and he needed an edge over Thrawn. So he was like, okay, well, if I have this ability of, the Force, and I have these army of basically Force robots or what droids or whatever the case may be, Thrawn is not going to be able to do anything against that. So it makes, because they're always in the Empire, they're always trying to fight. Because it's a broken thing. You had the Emperor who kind of had control of everything, but now that's gone. So everybody's trying to ascend to that supreme leader, as you said. And Gideon is like, okay, well, I need an edge. Ooh, got this little baby Yoda running around here. Let me see if I can, get some of his blood.
Because he forged the Beskar armor. He had that armor that he had.
He had a dark saber.
The dark saber. And then, have a little bit of Force, like midi-chlorians going through your blood to amplify your Force. It's like, all right, I could be...
Yeah, I'm formidable now. Like, basically,
I can
you fear
actually...
me like the Jedi.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, the thing is, and a lot of times I think this just shows you just how powerful the Emperor was. Because the Emperor was just so unbelievably powerful that nobody was going to stand against him. Like,
no one even knew it. That's the crazy thing. It's like no one even knew that.
I know. Well, but a lot of it, too, was because you had to get past Vader, who himself was, like, insanely powerful.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's like,
you're not getting past him.
Yeah, most of the time, you're not even going to get past him, so it wouldn't even get to the Emperor. But it's like, those two together, nobody had any hope, well, other than Luke. Nobody had any hope of actually defeating him. Well, now that you have the absence of these two, now you have a power vacuum. So now everybody is trying to get a little bit of piece of that. What could give me the advantage? What gives me the edge?
Yep.
And in Gideon's case, that's what he tried to do, till, of course, Luke Skywalker came around.
And Gideon being IFB, like the head of the IFB, like, he knows it's like, okay, that Vader was who he was, and not necessarily Anakin, but he knew that, okay, this guy is a Force user. And that's the great equalizer. Like, okay, you have that. Sometimes, there's not too much people can really do. He could weaponize that. So, yeah, it makes total sense.
And honestly, that's part of what I think makes this so compelling, is the fact that you're not going to have this just immeasurable, powerful villain, that you go against. Now, granted, Thrawn is more or less on his way to that point, but he's not even really the big guy. Sure, he's probably the puppet master. Who knows? Maybe he'll appear in a hologram. Maybe he'll, I'm sure his name will be dropped or something. But the thing is, I actually have a lot of hope for this movie, because I think not only do I think it is going to be done right, and not only do I honestly believe that when you basically recreate something in the spirit of what Lucas intended, that's going to put Star Wars back to where it actually feels like a Star Wars movie again. But even more than that, I think it's compelling because you have something that we haven't really seen before. We've always had some immensely powerful Force user, pretty much, as, the main villain. And you don't really have that here.
Well, I think that's also, it perfectly, sets up the home plate, I guess, if you want to call it that, for Palpatine to return. Because it's like, now you understand, it's like, okay, well, look, I died, and you morons couldn't even fashion together a working government like empire. So again, I have to come and do it. I create the First Order, essentially, unbeknownst to everybody else. Once again, I was able to fly under the radar and create Snoke. Okay, Snoke is going to be the guy.
He doesn't even have a body.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Snoke has to... Yeah, he creates Snoke. Snoke goes out there. okay, look, I need an enforcer. Hey, and the Skywalker family, it always works for me. Find Kylo, get Kylo. Now he's my new Vader. That's why when Snoke says, like, I thought that you would be the new Vader. I thought you were, but apparently you're just some, whiny little kid in a mask or whatever. So it's like so I won't say it solidifies, but it adds context to the sequel trilogy. I mean, they still suck, but at least you see the plan now. At least it makes a little bit more sense how all this kind of came to be. So
yeah, too bad the plan had to be retroactively done.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
It's kind of like, all right, Foundation's not looking too good here. We're gonna have to like shore it up and try to prop up the sequel trilogy. But yeah, I mean, it does give it a little bit more substance, and that's why I had always said, even when we were reviewing each of the movies, and disappointment started to set in. I always said, well, instead of rebooting the sequel trilogy, they could sort of softly reboot it by just making movies around it to the point where you don't need it. And this is where this begins, because they're starting to actually create something, a framework, that puts the sequel trilogy in a slightly more positive light in spite of its shortcomings. And I think that that's step one. And so because of that, I really hope that the success of this movie, well, first of all, I hope that it is a super successful movie.
Right, it is a success.
Because here's the thing, everybody points out, well, look at the sequel trilogy. It made billions upon billions of dollars, and that's true. That's based on the strength. Right. That's based on the strength of Star Wars actually meant something back then. Keep in mind, we're 10 years now removed from the Rise of Skywalker. Wow. Rise of Skywalker came out 10 years this December.
That's crazy.
I know.
Yikes.
By the way, it just occurred to me, like, just a second. Like, I was making the point, and then I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, crap, it really is 10 years. So, 10 years.
That's wild.
In a couple of months. So, we haven't had, like, an entire generation has grown up without a Star Wars movie, essentially. Like, a kid that was born 10 years ago, 10 years old now, has never in their lifetime had a Star Wars movie. Think about that. So that the whole built-in $2 billion, box office is not necessarily guaranteed, especially because they've been chipping away at the reputation with all these failed series. And it's getting smaller and smaller. I mean, it's like, even for our show, like the time for us to have done our show was probably like 20 years ago.
Right.
Like after episode 3 came out, and everybody's still all Star Wars happy, and
exactly.
Now it's kind of like Star Wars, and I haven't even watched it. I don't care about that, and I'm like, great time to have a Star Wars themed show. That's why we probably still haven't hit our watch hours yet. So this is something that I think that Disney really has to look at carefully, because again, even though stylistically and plot-wise and all of that, you don't necessarily want to say this is the future of Star Wars. That's almost like Solo, when Solo came out, saying that. This is kind of like a little bit of a one-off, a little bit of a detour, a fun movie. It actually has a lot in common with Solo, to be honest. But I do think that this has the potential to actually bring people back into the Star Wars universe. And then the next one, what do you do now? Like, if this thing is super successful, now what do you do?
I think you really need to, one, remember what you did right. And two, I think you need to like carry that into like, okay, whatever your sequel post Rise of Skywalker, that has to, use that formula, so to speak, and, just create new characters or something that's going to appeal to, to the fans. And I think you're just gonna have to take your time and just make sure you get it right.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, before we wrap things up, let's watch this trailer one more time now in light of everything that we just said.
Roll it again.
Yes, roll it again.
Almost like Scarif.
Yeah, I know. And I do wonder, these planets, we didn't really talk about that much during this little episode of ours. But, like, which planets are familiar and which aren't?
I don't know this green crap that, well, we'll get to that again.
Again, I really am looking forward to the whole Sigourney Weaver element to this thing.
It's cool to see her in space again.
Yeah, not being... well, different kind of alien, right?
Exactly. She seems much calmer this time.
Now, I remember the whole celebration footage. There was this whole elongated battle scene, like this fight scene between Din and a bunch of other guys. But see, I mean, this looks like a good action-packed movie.
Impressive.
I just love that Grogu's always hungry.
I know. Well, I mean, Yoda did... what's the first thing he did when he met Luke? He's, like, going through all his stuff.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that they continue making the AT-ATs look a little bit lived in, a little dirty.
Yeah, dirty, dingy.
Yeah.
This is the thing that gets me. Oh, you didn't show it.
Oh, the little green thing at the end? Yeah.
I was wondering, like, did that
jumped the
come
gun.
out of Grogu, or did he, like, kick up some stuff in a sewer and toss it in
No,
his
I think
eye?
he kicked some stuff in a sewer and...
Okay, because I'm like, the heck is that? It's like a spider web. It's like a Grogu spider web.
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions about that, and I'm really looking forward to, I think, just seeing, not because I think we have the overall tone, but what I'm looking forward to seeing is like the finer points of the plot, because unlike what Ted said in the beginning, he's right. I mean, it doesn't have to be some like massive like lore expanding thing. But I do think that just by nature of where it takes place, it's going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Much the same way Andor did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Building out the universe and that time period. So I think much
Yeah.
the same way that Andor did that for its time period, I think you're going to see that happen definitely in this movie as well. I just hope that they don't get obsessed with doing that. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that that's another mistake maybe the sequel trilogy made, was they were so obsessed about, trying to explain this or bring that out or whatever they were trying to do expansion-wise when it comes to the lore, that they forgot to make a compelling story that would appeal to people. Because it wasn't heavy enough in the lore to actually appeal to the, to the hardcore fan, and it was a little bit too weird. And then, of course, when they brought Palpatine back, I mean, sure, there were some cool aspects to it. And I did like the Sith Troopers. I thought that was actually a really cool idea. But we barely got to... I remember in the trailer, it's another Phasma thing. We were like, ooh, these are cool. And then when you read about it, like, ooh, they're bringing in Sith Troopers. That's awesome. And yet, you have Rogue One, a single film that brings in the Death Troopers that are completely memorable. They used them really well. And, of course, they carried over into other movies and series.
Well, the other thing about the Sith Troopers is, like, you didn't even see what made them Sith Troopers. Like, aside from them being red, I mean, they just look like regular troopers in red uniforms. Like, okay. Like, at least the Death Troopers, at least they were accurate and they were, kind of vicious.
Yeah.
The Sith Troopers, they're just red. They just got a paint job.
That is true.
No force powers, nothing. It was just...
See, and that's... I mean, about the only thing, and of course, the whole time that he was explaining about putting the Death Star laser on the Star Destroyer, which I thought was actually a compelling idea, but I just couldn't get the whole Dr. Evil.
Man, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. Like, I want laser beams attached to their head.
Exactly. And I mean, it's over when that's... And I mean, that was the first thought I had when I'm watching the movie. That's the problem. Like when I was watching it for the first time, that's the
really?
first thing. Yes.
And that's it. It didn't occur to me until later, but that's hilarious.
Even
that's
though,
the
again,
first thing.
I mean, it's like, look, I'll give them props for it. I thought it was a cool thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed like he borrowed that. Like, I need some. Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. Like maybe
It almost seemed like he did it because I like, I
like
wanted people to catch this.
Well, why not? You know, it was successful. But, context everybody. But, yeah. Either way, I think that overall...
The big bad is Scott Evil.
Well, there you go. I think this is actually going to be a good one. I mean, look, it got the David stamp of approval.
Yep, exactly.
So, I mean, I think right there we can say, okay, look, I think we're in...
to a decent start.
Yeah, we're off to a decent start. But the question, of course, is what do you guys think? Were you happy with this trailer? Do you think it is on the right track? Do you think it's going to be something that's good, that's fun? Or do you think this is going to be another miss by Disney? We're really looking forward to hearing from you guys. You got about 30 seconds to throw it in the chats really quick, or you can just put it in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. You guys know the drill. Notifications, because you never know when we're going to be able to go on live. It's usually going to be Sunday or Monday, as it is today. But you're going to definitely want to hit that notification bell just so you keep track of when it's actually going to happen. All right. Is there, a lot of times lately it seems like we end the show by figuring out what we're going to do for the next one. So do you have any ideas?
Yeah. Because we actually replaced one of ours for this one. So let me go back into our...
Oh, you're right. We did. We actually... Yeah, because we ran across this trailer and we said, oh, this should probably be our next show instead. Yeah. No, you know what? I forgot all about that. I know, it seems like so long ago, though. And the problem is that we keep texting each other in between that, so you got to go through just paragraphs of text in order to figure it out, I mean, the good news is
yes.
You found it?
Amy Adams.
Found something? Oh, as Mary Jane.
It's an older text.
But it still checks out.
Yes, the Amy Adams, Mary J. for Starfighter.
Yeah, that would... Okay, yeah, we could do that one. I mean, unless some big, super compelling thing drops between now and then.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that. That would be fun. All right, yeah, let's do that. Next show probably is going to be this thing that came out that it's strongly being suggested that Amy Adams might become Mara Jade for Star Wars Starfighter. Which is a really odd project.
Yeah,
to bring her into
here. Yeah, and not only that, but the project itself. Like, I'm really curious about this thing.
Oh yeah,
so
it should be the Star Wars version of Top Gun.
So we're definitely gonna have to talk about this.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely we'll break it down as usual, and hopefully you guys are chat in and discuss it too. Because I think that'll be a really fun discussion to figure out, number one, how that's going to look, and two, are they going to bring Mara Jade into this?
Right.
That's just like, I remember reading that going, that is of all the projects they've got going on, that's the one that they think they're going to bring her in.
Right.
But check us out next week and, we'll talk about it and dissect it as usual. All right. With that, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.